Hello friends, myself Dr. Nidhi Darbari on My Education Treasure, and today I am going to explain about the education definition, theories and education in the 21st century. Generally speaking, education is utilized in three senses: knowledge, subject, and a process. When a person achieves degree up to a certain level, we do not call it education. For example, if a person has secured master's degree, then we utilize education in a very narrow sense and call that the person has achieved education up to master's level. In the second sense, education is utilized in a sense of discipline. As for example, if a person had taken education as a paper or as a discipline during his study in any institution, then we utilize education as a subject. In the third sense, education is utilized as a process. In fact, when we talk of education, we talk in the third sense, that is education as a process. Thus, we talk what is education as process, what are their importance, etc. There are various definitions of education. Dr. Zakir Hussain has said that education is the process of the individual mind getting to its full possible development. Redden has described education as the deliberate and systematic influence exerted by the mature upon the immature through instruction, discipline, and harmonious development of physical, intellectual, aesthetic, social, and spiritual powers of the human being according to the individual and social needs and directed towards the union of the educated with his creator at the final end. According to Pestology, education is the harmonious and progressive development of all the innate powers and faculties of man, physical, intellectual, and moral. The Education Commission 1964-66 said that education ought to be related to the life, needs, and aspirations of the people so as to be powerful instrument of social, economic, and cultural transformation. T.P. Nunn wrote that education is a complete development of the individuality of the child so that he can make an original contribution to human life according to the best of his capacity. The reason for difference of opinion is that different educationists, most of whom are philosophers, have different views about the aim of life. According to idealists, the aim of life is spiritual development. As such, they regard education as a spiritual process which aims at bringing together the soul and the creator, leading to self realization. Pragmatists think about education as a process of social progress. Because of these differences in the philosophy of life, different educationists define education differently. The fact is that the real concept of education is not related solely to any of the above mentioned views. It is more than either of them. In a real sense, education is a sort of synthesis of all the above viewpoints. In this sense, education includes the individual, the society, the environment, the social fabric, and the prevailing traditions. Hence, the definition of education ought to be very comprehensive and all-inclusive one. From the above discussion, it is now clear that since the times of Plato to the modern times of John Dewey and Gandhi, various educationists have defined education in various ways. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it for others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Focus of education in 21st century. UNESCO has defined the goals of education during the last 50 years through various reports. We can draw a report Learning, The Treasure Within, published by UNESCO under the chairmanship of Jacques Delors in the year 1996, which mentions the four pillars of education for holistic development, are discussed below. Learning to know. Learning to know means having the ability to direct and take responsibility for one's own learning, for keeping oneself up to date, for knowing where to look for knowledge. It particularly to scientific awareness. This type of learning is radically different from acquiring itemized codified information or factual knowledge as often stressed in conventional curriculum and in rote learning. Rather, it implies the mastering of the instruments of knowledge themselves. When we read a brochure about growing mushrooms distributed by the Agricultural Extension section, we know or understand how to grow mushrooms. When we read newspapers, we know what is going on in our country and other places. We learn things to increase our knowledge and understanding. Our efforts in learning are a never ending process. The world is changing very fast. Consequently, we need to upgrade our knowledge all the time. This type of learning is called learning to know. Learning to do. This pillar of learning implies, in the first place, for application of what learners have learned or known into practice. It is closely linked to vocational, technical education, and work skills training. However, it goes beyond narrowly defined skill development for doing specific things or practical tasks in traditional or industrial economies. The emerging knowledge based economy is making human work increasingly immaterial. Learning to do calls for new types of skills, more behavioral than intellectual. The material and the technology are becoming secondary to human qualities and interpersonal relationship. After knowing how to grow mushrooms, we need to actually try by growing them. When we acquire new knowledge, we need to put it into practice. We call this type of learning learning to do. Our efforts should always be to provide continuing education activities based on things that our learners can actually do, that they can put into practice, that are relevant to their lives. Learning to be. Learning to be means the discovery of true human nature and encounter with the essence of oneself, which goes beyond the psychic apparatus of thoughts and emotions. It is learning to belong to the whole. It is the discovery of our universal dimension where genuine human values, not individual human values, reside. It is the discovery of one's own being and the inner wisdom achieved through self knowledge. Holistic education nurtures this learning in a special way by recognizing the human beings as a basically spiritual being in search of meaning. Learning to be may therefore be interpreted in one way as learning to be human through acquisition of knowledge, skills, and values conducive to personality development in its intellectual, moral, cultural, and physical dimensions. This implies a curriculum aiming at cultivating qualities of imagination and creativity, acquiring universally shared human values, developing different aspects of a person's potential, such as memory, reasoning, aesthetic sense, physical capacity, and communication social skills, developing critical thinking and exercising independent judgment, and developing personal commitment and responsibility. Everybody has their own vision of their future. For example, a craftsman may want to become a senior craftsman or an expert. A shop worker may want to set up his or her own small business. If we want to have our own shop for selling mushrooms, we need to acquire some entrepreneurs and management skills. When this happens, we are learning to be an entrepreneur. When we have a vision, we are motivated to increase our knowledge and skills. We appreciate or see the value of lifelong learning. As a continuing education facilitator, one of our roles is to motivate community people through continuing education programs to raise their aspiration so that they can identify some goals for their life. The learning that we are trying to achieve is learning to be, learning to live together. This means learning to live responsibly, respecting and cooperating with other people, and in general with all the living organisms on the planet. Learning must overcome prejudice, dogmatism, discrimination, authoritarianism, and stereotypes, and all that leads to confrontation and war. The fundamental principle of this pillar of learning is interdependence, that is, knowledge of the network of life. This pillar implies an education taking two complementary paths. On one level, discovery of others, and on another, experience of shared purposes throughout life. Specifically, it implies the development of such qualities as knowledge and understanding of self and others, appreciation of the diversity of the human race, and an awareness of the similarities between and the interdependence of all humans, empathy and cooperative social behavior in caring and sharing, respect of other people and their cultures and value system, capability of encountering others and resolving conflicts through dialogues, and competency in working towards common objectives. We are members of a community that is also a part of a broader society. Everybody wants to live in peace and harmony, to have security and respect for each other. Thus, we need to promote social equity, justice, peace, and harmony through education. For example, when we become entrepreneurs of mushroom production, we may help our friends in the community to acquire skills for growing mushrooms. We may set up a community cooperative to sell mushrooms and other products and share the profits among the members. Some profit can be saved for community welfare for our family and children. This type of community development may help us to live together peacefully. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe.